Welcome to this Scando studio in the city center of Helsinki. I have a new guest here sitting with me, Ken Dooley. Welcome.
Thank you.
Technology Director, Innovation and Development, Granlund.
Yes.
Is the company.
It is indeed, yeah.
Yes. You've been living in Finland for quite a long time. You're originally Irish.
Yeah.
But you're not just for this occasion here. You actually live in Helsinki.
I do. And sometimes as a kind of outsider, innovation is a really nice role because we see things a little bit differently as well. So,
yeah.
So it's productive and kind of really useful to have a kind of different view. So
yes.
And quite helpful being not Finnish in our role.
Well, definitely. It would be lovely to hear more of you. Actually, you're going to do 360 degrees in our studio.
I am.
We're going to stay here for a few minutes and then you have your presentation and then we're going to meet you again in the green room.
Yeah.
How has your autumn been? I mean, the pandemic is hitting your sector as well, or how are you handling it?
We've kind of done one of those, let's be creative, let's make the most of it. So actually there's some kind of industry problems that we're really interested in. We've actually been studying something called digital twins this year. So we have a publication coming out in December where it's just one of those subjects that has a lot of hype. And originally there was needed a lot of hype just to kind of get the name out there and what it does. A lot of the use cases are very sci-fi. And now we've done this kind of market survey by interviewing lots of the kind of people in a really wide stakeholder here in Finland to kind of get a feeling, what could these practically do? So that was our, while stuck at home and everyone else is stuck at home, let's get some ideas from the market.
Sure. So how is the real estate industry doing in accelerating growth by seizing new digital opportunities? Is there a clear path or to move forward or?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to do. I think I'll show in one or two of the slides as well that there's a lot of new technology and maybe there's almost kind of not enough mental capacity to absorb all the different things happening. So there are some relatively easy things to test, but maybe not so easy to kind of really push out. And I'll kind of show maybe in the presentation one or two things of the challenges that building owners have in digitalizing their real estate.
Not to reveal too much, detect, diagnose and direct the future of fault detection in buildings. That's the title of your presentation. So we'll hear more about it very soon. Just give us a few hints about what you're going to say and tell us.
Yeah, so I think definitely the case we're kind of looking 24-hour buildings that are retail, and they use a lot of energy, but obviously you can't turn stuff off at different times when there isn't so many people there because the whole brand reputation is at stake. So it's really hard to kind of balance kind of having a really good performance for your customers, but also having a kind of really looking at energy saving. So we have a nice case from Kesko.
Lovely. So Ken Dooley from Granlund, the stage is yours.
Okay. Yeah, that music. Yeah. Okay, so as I said a moment ago, I'm going to talk about kind of fault detection in buildings today. We have a case that we've used Wapice's IoT Ticket to kind of show. So a little bit about Granlund first. We're a kind of over 1,000 employee kind of Finnish company, close to, let's say, 100 million turnover, really focused on design, consulting and software in the built environment. We have a big focus on energy, on kind of internal conditions in buildings. And the kind of overview really is just looking at kind of health and well-being for people and for the kind of buildings and the environment is a big focus. To give a kind of a feeling of where the industry is, where is real estate, there's a nice report from KPMG last year that really looked at prop tech, so kind of technology around property. And there was kind of some sobering facts with regards to things like integration, quite low levels of integration, and some statements, about, let's say, the kind of levels of data strategy that certain companies have. A large amount of companies, let's say, a third here just don't have a data strategy at all. So we're going to talk about some of these things today and the kind of challenges. I think one thing that I just mentioned with Ella as well is just the kind of new technologies coming into the industry, and that kind of asset managers and building owners kind of have to kind of understand what's happening. There's a lot of kind of competing technologies. So you have here, let's say, kind of smart building, let's say layers of different sensors. And to be honest, one thing we've seen is there isn't a lot of kind of real value created by a lot of these things here. There isn't, although I've tried to put a star of 1 or 2, there isn't a huge kind of understanding of, okay, these are things you have to make your building better. And then if you're being more ambitious to create an even better building, we're kind of looking at these things here. There's a lot of kind of nice to have technologies here. There's not a lot of really, really important to have. And at the same time, when we're kind of navigating our way through how to design smart buildings, building owners as well kind of are looking at creating a really nice user experience. If it's in office buildings, it's about booking rooms. It's about seeing the kind of restaurant queue. It's in shopping centers. It's about having, let's say, sensors or indoor navigation and sensors showing you the nearest car parking space. And then at the same time, when all of this is being navigated, kind of building owners and asset managers then are kind of looking at in the operations of their building, how are they doing there? And I'm going to talk more about the kind of operations layer today. It essentially is the kind of toughest nut to crack, and we're really held back by the kind of legacy of building management systems. Most of the information, most of the impact and control is, and especially energy impact, is really coming from kind of building management systems, and they really have a kind of legacy logic of control. So if we think of the corridor of an office building, and when you walk down, there's a sensor, a presence sensor that turns on the lights. The logic of that very closed system is that when it detects movement, it turns on the lights. And after a certain period of time, if movement hasn't been detected, maybe 5 minutes, it turns the lights back off. These days, we're really interested in kind of analyzing real estate and how it's being used. So if I have an office building open at the weekend and all the energy on and ventilation happening, then I might be interested in knowing, okay, which buildings on the campus are people in at the weekend, which floors are they in? And I might be really interested in looking at those sensors to give some understanding or insight in, what spaces are being used and when are they being used. But again, that closed system of those sensors, they haven't been made to output that data, and that really holds us back in really getting the most and really optimizing. So one case we're going to present today then is Kesko's Easton in East Helsinki. Kesko last year really aimed and made a target of having the carbon neutral grocery store, and Easton was one of their 3 kind of flagship pilot projects. We actually used IoT Ticket from Wapice in this project. So the idea was that we were combining different pieces of data with IoT Ticket. We were kind of doing more complex analysis than, let's say, a normal kind of business intelligent dashboard. And then it also enabled us to kind of create alerts and triggers if we had a kind of threshold or a range of how we thought the building should perform. If they came outside that range, then there was alerts and triggers created for our staff to kind of really see what was happening. To give a feeling of the kind of integration or the kind of data that was combined, we were really in this case kind of looking at the energy consumption data of the different systems, the building management system data that was controlling the ventilation and heating and lighting and all these things, the service data, which is mostly around our machines being maintained, are they being looked after, our filters in ventilation machines being changed, these kind of really focused on maintenance things, and then really understanding the kind of open data issues like weather and these kind of things. An example of the dashboard that we're using can be seen here, and there was the integration layer, and then there's the kind of complex analysis and alerts that are set up through the IoT Ticket dashboard. Our focus was really on this idea of kind of detect and diagnose, and then the important thing for us is the element of direct, and then the kind of follow-up on that as well over time. So fault detection, is soon becoming kind of best practice. It isn't something, it isn't something that's totally new, but for us, And fault detection is quite high level. It's really saying there's a problem in the system and there's an element of diagnosis in it. But what we were able to do in these cases, and what we're really kind of getting better at all the time, is really taking that diagnosis to be kind of really, really fine-tuned and really specific, and actually directing maintenance people and problem solvers to kind of pinpoint specific where to go. And then allowing us to follow these things up on time, so continuously. And the ability to not just say, you know, this area of the building is cold, there must be a problem with the heating system, or this area of the building is cold, there must be a problem with the ventilation system, but actually drilling down and finding the exact kind of cause of the problem and being able to send a description of what needs to be done is a really important thing that has been done here. And I think the most simple way to explain it without going into detail is that we can have an office building and someone reports that there's a light bulb out in an open office area. What we want to get to the point of doing is not just saying to a maintenance person, come and replace the light bulb, because then they come and they look at the light bulb and they go, okay, it's that type of light bulb, and they leave and come back with that light bulb. The industry needs to get to the point where the person is told there's a light bulb out in this exact area, it is this light bulb, and the maintenance people come knowing exactly what the problem is, knowing exactly what tools they need to fix it, and then they leave again and they only make one visit. And that's really where this kind of direct and this pinpoint specific direct comes in. The case in Easton was really about kind of energy recycling and energy recovery. There's three main elements. There's kind of a cooling center, which is kind of making heat because it's cooling the various cold storage machines in the shopping center. It's a 24/7 grocery store in East Helsinki. There's then a kind of heat pump where the free heat and the waste heat from the cooling machines come in, and then there's a heating center where they're combined. And the whole idea here is that it's actually quite of a complex arrangement. You have, you know, free heat coming from the ventilation machines, from the cold storage in the storage areas, from the cold machines where the milk is and meat is and these kind of things. You also have the potential to add kind of geothermal free heat as well. And then you have the idea that there's a heat pump and it's kind of combined with, let's say, buffer tanks. So you have kind of free heating coming from the cooling machines. You have heat demand over for heating the building at the same time. And then you have the kind of fluctuating outside temperature as well. And this is where the kind of main gains have been made on this project. So actually, it only took about 6 months to get the main results and to really get it moving. It required very little investment because the building had been designed and the building had been installed and commissioned. But because this is kind of a complex balance, it took a lot of extra work after the building was opened to really kind of balance and to get this working. So the real focus was on kind of balancing when cooling was needed and when heating was needed and the outside temperature. Outside of that, IoT Ticket allowed us to kind of really see if there was kind of overheating in some spaces like the car parking areas or over ventilation in other spaces, and really looking at the kind of times of those kind of locked-in closed systems and bringing the information out. The kind of results were really impressive. The heating energy was reduced by just about 70%, and kind of really without new investments, which was something that we were really pleased about, and really proud that actually it won a Motivan Energia Nerokas award, so the Finnish Energy Agency's Energy Genius Award, I guess, in English, in 2019. So a really nice kind of support that Kesko and Granlund got for this project. So I think in summary, from our point of view in Granlund then, it's really that this operations phase is the kind of most difficult and most complex and maybe most old-fashioned, and kind of the legacy of old technology is there. It's easy to do some of the other important smart building and user experience stuff, which is super important, but we also kind of need to look at these operations elements. This Kesko case, they really were looking at kind of carbon neutral buildings and how to do that. And in order to kind of create that and deliver that target, IoT Ticket then was super useful in getting that information out and getting it displayed and allowing kind of the alarms to come to show us what we needed to do. And we're really happy with the result of these really, really kind of high energy savings, that the heating energy was reduced by 70%. Okay, so that's all from me. If you have any other interesting kind of questions about this, it's the Granlund digitaaliset kiinteistöpalvelut, so digital facility services team, or you can contact me at my email there or at Ken Dooley on Twitter. Okay, thank you.
So thank you, Ken. That was very interesting. All right, so welcome to the studio here.
Thank you.
So, well, first of all, I mean, the enablers, I mean, let's perhaps dig a bit deeper into the technology side and the enablers. So we heard from Outokumpu earlier that now they have utilized Nortal, an external partner, to kind of get everything done on the platform side. Now you have chosen IoT Ticket from Wapice. So could you a bit elaborate that now? What were the key decision-making points, and then why did you go that way?
Yeah, I think it's quite intimidating when you really go down that route and kind of looking at, you know, what, let's say, infrastructure or what integration kind of services you're using. I think we saw IoT Ticket as being, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in our industry, as you can imagine. And we kind of saw it as being, you know, a tailor-made set of tools that almost in the larger companies and international brands, there's almost too much choice there. It's almost like going to a massive hardware store when you only need a knife and a fork and a spoon or something. So the idea that the core needs of ours, especially at this stage in our journey, were really in IoT Ticket, made it a kind of really straightforward choice. And we haven't at any stage now found that actually, you know, we're even close to kind of outgrowing the functionalities that it has and the features that it has. But definitely when we've looked into some of the bigger, more international, more well-known services, there was almost too much in there. And we really found that this kind of meets our needs for the generation that our industry is at, let's say.
But I could also imagine that, of course, I mean, you have the international players and then you have the local providers, and then I mean the collaboration between these different parties. I mean, it is a bit different. So I mean, how can you kind of describe that, and how did you work with Wapice then? I mean,
and it isn't exactly my team. I've been kind of doing the kind of overview of these things, but the guys have really good cooperation, and it seems to have worked really well. And there seems to be kind of a lot of common kind of events we go to as well. We kind of turn up in the same places, and those kind of informal chats as well kind of really help. So I think, you know, it's almost like, I think these days we're calling it serendipity. You know, these unorganized kind of place where you bump into people. So that really helps. And I know in particular, I've given some presentations or some pitches to the Wapice guys. You know, you should help us kind of solve these problems over here. These problems are really important. And when I was speaking to them on Teams or Skype or whatever it was a busy meeting and we were covering lots of things. And they didn't really get why it was important. And then maybe a year later, I was pitching in a kind of idea competition about these things. And one of the Wapice guys is in the audience. And he goes, "Okay, now I get it."
Okay, all right.
You know, almost sometimes these kind of new concepts as well, you need to kind of bump into each other. You need to kind of throw the idea at people 4 or 5 times in different ways, in a 1-hour pitch and a 2-minute pitch, and eventually, you know, we catch up with each other. Either they're ahead of us or we're ahead of them, or we know our industry better than them. And I think that really helps when you know the people that are providing the service and when they're local.
I think that, I mean, that is all about the partnership. That now, if you know somebody close enough, I mean, you can discuss the topics. I mean, you have much more opportunity to go through those, so that the other person or the other company understands that fully. So there is also now on Wapice, I mean, the IoT Lab area available for the listeners who are interested of that. To understand more about the offering, please go visit the lab area. But then also, I mean, the last question from my side is that now you were kind of following the first use cases a lot about the heating and then kind of reducing the energy consumption. Now, in such kind of buildings, I mean, you have all kinds of different ecosystems existing. I mean, different kind of providers. For instance, we listened yesterday about Kone. I mean, how they're digitalizing the elevators. So, what's next for you? I mean,
There's so much happening. Actually, I've been working on that user experience side a lot this year and the year before, and I think that's the easiest place to start, because it's potentially It's potentially more software than hardware, and therefore cheaper to to implement and install because it's less. But also those end users, be they employees in an office building or customers, it's really important to get visibility. We're doing something for those people. The data that comes out of them interacting with the tools is super reusable, and they are the hardest people to get to interact as well. So it's important. It's the most difficult thing to do, and if you manage to do it correctly, it's super reusable. So that's one of the focus areas as well.
I guess that you missed the last point. That is extremely rewarding as well when you get that done. So
yeah.
Hey, Ken, thank you so much for joining me here. It was a wonderful presentation.
Great.
All the best in the future. And then Ella, I believe that now you're ready to continue from here onwards.